This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace.
Last year, I went through many different life changes. I needed to take a pause and examine how I was feeling in the inside to better show up for the ones who need me to be my best version of myself.
When you're navigating life's changes, Talkspace can help. Talkspace is the #1 rated online therapy, bringing you professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatry providers that you can access anytime, anywhere.
Living a busy life, navigating a long-distance relationship, becoming a first-step father, Talkspace made all of those journeys possible. I could speak with my therapist in the office. I could speak with my therapist in the comfort of my home. I was never alone.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance, no problem. Now get $80 off your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Live from the back of Ruth the Realtor's car, it's the Stacking Deed Show. I'm Ruth the Realtor's part-time mechanic, neighbor Doug, broadcasting live from the trunk of Ruth's 1988 Lincoln Town Car. On today's show, we're joined by the mastermind behind a colossal flower pot-shaped rental property, the one and only Whitney Hansen. You'll discover incredible ways to make your rental property truly unforgettable. Pineapple under the sea, anyone? In our headlines, we're covering the 12 things poor people waste money on, according to Warren Buffett. Then we'll answer a call for help on Ruth's rotary phone. But wait, there's more. Stick around for my property pop quiz, where I'll dazzle you with trivia. And now, two people who waste their money on seatbelts and air conditioning instead of a real podcast studio. It's Crystal Hammond and Joe Saul. Say hi.
Well, hey there, Deeders. Welcome back to another episode. And normally, I'm in the back seat of Ruth's car with my good friend Crystal. However, Crystal got called out to Austin at the last minute, so she is now live on our shortwave radio. Crystal Hammond's here. How are you?
Great. Yeah, there's like a delay, and then I have to have my face close to the computer because, like a great co-host, I forgot all of my devices at home. I have my microphone, but I don't have the part to put into the computer. So I'm half here, half virtually unsound, as we like to call it.
Well, the good news, though, Crystal, is we have a special guest with us today, as Doug said so eloquently early, but she's going to be riding along for the whole podcast. Do you know who it is? Were you listening to Doug?
Yeah, of course. I love Doug. I listen to anything Doug says before I even know what he's going to say sometimes before he says it. That's how in sync we are. We have the unbelievable, unstoppable Whitney Hansen today.
Whitney, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, you guys. I'm excited to be here.
We're super happy that you're here with us. You are the mastermind behind the Money Nerds podcast. Why don't we start there? Tell everybody a little bit about Money Nerds.
Money Nerds is a series of really interesting and unique money stories of people that have paid off millions of dollars of debt, like literally went to space. And we talked about how do you manage your money when you're like legit out of this world. So we have really fun conversations around what are the unique things that people do to find success with money. So that's what the Money Nerds is all about.
Well, we're going to talk about how you found success with money by building a flower pot. We're going to talk about unique properties with you. But we're super happy you're here. So, Whitney, do you mind also helping us with our headline and maybe our listener call today?
Yeah, super fun. Let's do it.
Well, for a lot of people, Crystal, you know, they have to come up with the money to be able to afford real estate. And you found a piece from Yahoo Finance that might help us save a few bucks to maybe save up for a down payment.
Oh, yes. My buddy Warren Buffett. I love listening to Warren Buffett. You know, you want to listen to your Warren Buffetts in the world, not a lot of these fake Instagram models who fake it online. So Warren Buffett's definitely proven that he knows a thing or two about money.
He's proven maybe once or twice. You talk about your buddy Warren Buffett. Do you call him like Warren B or BB?
Warren Beasy.
Warren Beasy? Yes. We know all the cool people. Well, I know the cool person, Crystal Whitney, which she knows all the cool people like Warren.
I'm impressed. I'm over here. You're on a first name basis?
Oh, it's
Oh, yeah.
amazing. Let's be clear. She's on a first name basis, though he is not.
Exactly.
Wah wah.
If
Right.
anyone knows Warren Buffett, introduce us, please.
Let's dive into these things poor people waste money on. Relying on credit cards is early on this list. Of course, credit cards can be convenient, high interest rates, quickly overshadowing benefits. I think it's a good idea to have at least have a great debt strategy before you begin trying to invest in something like real estate, Crystal.
Right. If you have credit card debt, or I always say use your credit for good. If you're buying something and you can't pay it off, don't buy it. Because a friend of mine, she was like, I don't care, just put it on my credit card. And I was like, well, would you pay 30% more for a TV? She's like, no, that's what you do when you don't pay the credit card off. Like, if you're going to get in credit card debt, buy something that's going to pay you back. Maybe buy a gym certification. And gym certifications are like to teach a class. It's not even that expensive, but let's say it costs $500 to get certified to teach, a class. That $500 is going to pay you back every single month. So don't buy anything that's not paying you back, and don't buy anything you can't pay off.
Well, and the big thing here, Whitney, I know with your real estate, I'm sure stuff has come up. And if your only place to go to, for a Home Depot run or Low B, if you've got to put it all on the credit card, that's going to just ruin your investment.
It is. Ace Hardware, man. That's the only store around here. So it's a good, 15, 20% higher price, but they give you the free popcorn.
Yeah. See, win-win.
Are you on a first name basis with the people at Ace Hardware now?
Actually, no, I'm not. Isn't that funny? I usually would be, but no. We have this like mutual like nod of approval and, walk of shame as I see him 3 times a day.
Right. That's how I feel like every time I buy a new house, I'm like, yep, hey, I'm back.
Remember me?
Yeah, I'm an idiot who doesn't know how to make a shopping list. And instead, I'm just back here. In
Me
pubs,
too. I understand, Joe.
I remember, Crystal, we had a guy on Stacking Benjamins with us for a long time, Greg McFarland, who always said one of the best places to save money is to stop drinking, and especially stop drinking at restaurants, because your bill immediately goes down by, you've 2 drinks at a restaurant, your bill goes down $24 if you don't do that.
Oh, definitely. And people think nowadays that, oh, I'm just going to drink a non-alcoholic drink. No, they want your $16 too. They make the fanciest, most expensive non-alcoholic drinks too. So it's like you need to just stick with water. I know people that sneak alcohol in water bottles and flasks. Like
Oh
when
my
they go
God.
out to eat, they're like, "Can I have a cup of ice? Can I have a Coke, but fill the cup halfway?" But don't go if you just can't afford it. It's just all an affordability thing. Maybe you can only afford to do it once a week, or, a couple times a month. Like some people make it special again. Some people just, it's a habit, or make it special, fancy.
Overspending on clothes. Crystal, I know you make your own clothes. For me, I don't buy a lot of clothes. I just buy really good clothes. Like I spend good money on clothing. I just don't have a lot of different pieces. I try to keep my wardrobe small and wear stuff that's going to last.
Anybody? I agree. But thrift stores are like a hidden gem too, because when they say they don't make them like they used to, that's a fact. The clothes is fast fashion. And so the stuff, you can't wash and dry it. If I can't wash and dry it, I don't want it. But a lot of things that the good quality that went into making good quality pieces is gone out the window. Because I know even Joe, you talked about this having really old pieces that are, timely and classics. So it's harder to find those really classic, nice, solid pieces these days. But I'm a big fan of just, I rotate. You can see all my pictures. Go ahead and see how I repeat the same outfits over and over. 'Cause if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Whitney, what's your strategy with buying clothing?
It's kind of a combination. I do a lot of thrifting, so I love all the thrift stores. I've actually learned the cycles of when they put out new clothes. And so if I go to my local Goodwill on a Thursday, I get the new batches, so that's pretty cool. But what I have utilized and I think works really well, I don't know where I read this, but somebody said if your shoes are really nice, your shoes, and one singular handbag, then your whole outfit looks more put together. And so what I did is I started to get rid of all my cheap kind of gross shoes, all my Target classics, and I started to upgrade into really nice shoes. And I tell you, I think it makes a
That is
difference.
funny.
So
There's
that's kind of the
two
strategy I
pieces
use.
that welcome to our clothing podcast. I'm Joe, the co-host, along with Crystal and Whitney. But there's two things that I did. One is I'm with you on the shoes. I actually, when I was a financial planner, I thought I could get away with cheap shoes. So I would wear these shoes instead of shoes you had to shine. I wore the ones that had the permanent plastic shine. And when I stopped wearing them, nobody told me they recognized my cheap shoes until I stopped wearing them. And then this dude in the office, the first day I bought nice shoes, goes, "Oh my God, I'm so happy you finally got rid of those crappy shoes." Day one. I had been in the office for maybe 10 minutes and I thought nobody noticed, Whitney. So to your point, everybody notices, they just don't tell you. But then the second thing, a great way to dress up jeans and a t-shirt is with a simple jacket for guys. So I will just put a jacket on over the same t-shirt and jeans that I wore before, and it looks like I actually tried.
They felt sorry for poor Joe. They thought you were a poor guy.
I
We
know.
can't afford shoes.
I know. And I just thought I could save money there. Definitely don't try to, if you're going to try to save money in your wardrobe, fine. Saving it on shoes, Whitney, to your point, I think is big. Unnecessary subscription services, Crystal, this is a big one.
Yeah, I like that nowadays there are companies that'll help you, which you don't need them to help you to see, okay, what things have you signed up for that you don't even use? So watch signing up for things and make a calendar, request or something. Cause I'm subscribed to two things that I have to remember to cancel by the 5th of the month or else I'm getting charged. But I do have a calendar invite on the 3rd reminding me to cancel that stuff or I'm going to get charged.
Whitney, for you, how many different subscriptions do you have?
A lot. Like, honestly, I haven't done. What I've used is not plugging them by any means, but there's a company that I've used that is called Rocket Money that helped me cancel subscriptions.
Yeah.
And so I did utilize that and I actually found it to be helpful. But a lot of the subscriptions that I noticed were regarding my business, like domain renewals and that kind of stuff that I forget about when I buy a domain on a whim and then it comes back around and you're paying $30 a year. So those are the types of subscriptions that I find I have to cancel more of.
You're a serial domain buyer.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing, Joe, but it's true.
I remember I bought Get Out of Debt Bitches years ago, and I'm like, and I never used it ever.
Get out of debt,
That's how it goes.
bitches.
Do you still have that
I
one?
let it go because I was like, it's 10 years later and I haven't done anything. Like, I'm not going to do anything.
My cousin has this great thing that he does with subscriptions for entertainment, where he will call me once every like 4 months and go, "What are you watching on Netflix?" And I'll give him a list. And then 4 months later, he's like, "What are you watching on Disney Plus?" And I asked him, I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, I realized finally that I only have one set of eyeballs, one thing at a time. So why not just subscribe to one of them instead of having Hulu, Disney, Apple, HBO, Paramount, having Netflix, all the different things." He gets one of them. He asks all of his friends what they're watching, and he goes through the best of the best that all his friends recommended. And then he goes to the next one. And I'm like, and what's funny is I keep talking about this everywhere I can because I'm trying to convince myself to do it. And I still haven't done it. And I think I'm a dumbass. I should do it. It makes so much sense that they do that. So yeah, I like that one. Hey, the last one on here is, gambling, smoking, or a couple of those. Those are addictive things. And let's make this show smoking hot and talk about the things that you will spend that money on. You like that transition? I'm working it. the,
It's beautiful.
Smoking hot.
the things that you would spend that money on if it came to real estate. Crystal, you found this piece from Luxury Presence. The 9 most profitable real estate niches and why they work.
Yes. So instead of spending your money on that other stuff, they say riches are in niches, right? So when you pare down and just focus on one thing, that can bring you great, great, great returns just because you've done the research, you know this target area backwards and forwards, and you can answer all the questions about it. You know what potential issues to look out for. it's something that comes natural to you. I know one of the things on the list is military. Let's say you are military and you know what it's like to find military housing, every so often, why not become a part of the solution to that for your fellow friends in the military too? You could do a great service, solving a problem that you already have and then just helping a bigger amount of people.
If you've got 5 or 6 houses around a military base and one becomes vacant, marketing that next one becomes easier because you've got 4 other tenants that like you who are on base. And when somebody new comes in, they can help you market that property. It makes sense. College campuses, I think also, Crystal, are, a great place. You constantly have a new flow of freshmen coming in that can rent, but you're better off if you focus on that and like, can I put an advertisement in the student union or not? What's the school's rule on that? Where are the best places that kids go to look at advertisements for housing? You get to know people at the college. So you're right, focusing on the niche. I want to ask you, Whitney, specifically about this. We're going to dive into your real estate journey in a minute, but before the flower pot, which we'll get into, did you focus on a specific niche, or is the flower pot piece of the niche? Like your Airbnb is your niche?
Yeah, it is kind of a piece of the niche. And I would say, even like within Airbnb as a category, there's even sub niches in there. So if you go to the Airbnb.com, you start to
Mhm.
see castles and tree houses and yurts and cabins and lake views. And so you start to see that there's even sub niches there. So I do agree. I think that does tend to be a strategy I use, is just go all in on unique, weird properties. Because why
Uh,
not?
Well, 2 other types of properties they have in this list, Crystal: aging in place. Like if you're in an older community with a lot of older people, having a place that allows people to stay home comfortably. I mean, think about this. So many people want to stay home. We have an aging relative right now who is in a nursing home. He desperately wants to come back home. He very much wants to come back home. And if you've got a place with handrails, wheelchair ramps, and accessible showers, that is great as long as you've got a marketing scheme that plugs in so that you can make sure that place stays rented.
Oh yeah, and I know another popular thing too is daycare for the aging population. An aunt of mine takes her mom to daycare and she loves it. All the people there, they really love going to daycare every day. It's not going to work. They're retired, they've worked hard. So they get to go somewhere and have fun all day, with other people their ages. And so that's another thing to look into. You can start a daycare for adults.
I think finding a niche and sticking with it is so important versus,
Mhm.
you see people, they'll do a flip, they'll do an Airbnb, they'll do a long-term rental. You've got these 3 or 4 things and you're becoming good at none of them, Crystal. You really want to focus on your thing.
Agreed.
We'll link to this piece on the show notes page. Crystal, you know where people find the show notes.
Yes, I hope you guys know too. So head to www.stackingdeeds.net/show notes. I handwrite them every week. And so they will be hand delivered to your inbox with a virtual postage stamp. Does anybody know? Postage stamps are like what, in the 60s or 70 cents now? So we save a stamp by hand delivering to your inbox virtually.
I think, is that a first sign of aging, Crystal, when you start talking about the cost of stamps?
Yes. I'm gonna look them up.
Have you seen how expensive stamps are? Damn it.
Was
Yes.
it like
Welcome.
once when I was little?
Welcome to my co-host, 90-year-old Crystal is here. Yeah. Coming up next, Whitney, get ready. We're going to try to make you sweat as we talk about your real estate journey and about a flower pot. What does a flower pot have to do with investing? We're going to talk about that next in just a second. But first, I think Doug has a property prop quiz for us.
Hey there, Deeders. I'm Ruth's wrench-wielding repair guru, Neighbor Doug. One of the most popular real estate social media accounts does not belong to us. Surprisingly, it belongs to Zillow Gone Wild. They showcase bizarre and weird homes. For a cool $1.1 million, for example, you can be the proud owner of a toilet-shaped home. Which leads me to today's property pop quiz question. In 2003, chainsaw artists Dennis Sullivan and Francis Conklin built a house in Idaho that's shaped like a beagle. Talk about being in the doghouse. There's also a house that's shaped like a shoe in York, Pennsylvania. Hey, let's make that the trivia question. Here we go. The shoe house was built in 1949. So how much did old Mother Hubbard's house cost to build? Who knew that was a real place? Was it $26,000, $56,000, or $106,000? I'll be back right after I see if there's a market for trunk podcast recording studios on Zillow Gone Wild. Hey there, Deeders. I'm Ruth's wrench-wielding repair guru, neighbor Doug. In York, Pennsylvania, there's a shoe house that is 48 feet long, 25 feet high, and 17 feet wide. It's approximately 1,500 square feet and features 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, a living room, kitchen, dinette, and recreation room. Well, sure, but does it have fiber internet? My question to you is, how much did it cost to build? Was it $26,000, $56,000, or $106,000? Shoe house was built in 1949 at a cost of $26,000. It was built to be a guest house for local promotions by the owner of a local shoe store chain. And now, we welcome Whitney Hansen, and you'll learn what goes on behind the scenes of building a bizarre-shaped home.
All right. And now we have Whitney Hansen with her flower pot. So I know the Airbnb market is so saturated. So you really have to do cool stuff to stand out. So we would love for the listeners to benefit from hearing about how you're standing out.
Well, a giant flower pot doesn't get more weird and noticeable than that. So the structure itself, the house, we're just finishing up. We have a goal of being done in 3 weeks. And it is quite literally a 24-foot tall flower pot. It has a 20-foot radius. So the bottom's a 20-foot circle, and then it goes out to about 30 feet. So that gives you kind of a context of how it looks. And that is quite seriously one of the best ways to stand out, is to build something that people think is weird as hell.
What about the inside? You know, you got the structure, small on the bottom, larger up top. Is it 1 story, 2 stories?
That's a great question. So it's actually technically 2 stories, but on the top of the flower pot, what we decided to do was, it's a flat roof up there. And so it's actually a rooftop patio, which is really amazing. The stargazing's so fun. So having that privacy up there is amazing. But the interior, I kind of went back and forth with my draftsman on this. I initially wanted the walls to be kind of straight up and down, and then have the taper of the flower pot be a facade. And he convinced me to do the walls tapered. So like the studs, instead of being straight up and down, are quite seriously leaning out about 10 degrees. It's really weird, but when you walk in, that's what you see. And I've had a couple people say, oh my gosh, it makes me dizzy when I go in there, when it was just the drywall.
Yeah.
So I might have to do a note saying, if you have any issues, don't stay there if you have any issues with vertigo.
How did this even come about? Like, how did that idea come about?
It's kind of, okay, this is a fun story, but I was initially just wrapping up a geodome, a glamping dome. Have you guys seen those before?
I've seen yours on social media. We'll link to your social media in the show notes. But yeah, you were making a glamping cool dome for people to stay at.
Yeah, it's like a fancy tent is a good way to think of it. So when we were just wrapping up that project, my partner and I, we were talking about, we want to do something else. We don't know what. We were just got done with a 1.5-year grind of that project and just didn't really know. And to be fair, like, these types of projects are very expensive because it's really hard to get loans for unique structures. That's one of the caveats here. And so we were trying to figure out what would our next project be. And I came across this Airbnb OMG fund. And what this is this was a call for Airbnb to try to find the weirdest, quirkiest, most interesting designs that the world has never seen before. And so they did.
Wait, Whitney, this is Airbnb, the company that put this on?
Yeah, Airbnb, the company. Yeah. So they initially had it during the pandemic, but they canceled it for good reasons, right? So they stopped it and brought it back. And when they brought it back, they just did this public call and said, hey, submit your weird ideas. It needs to be completed within this certain time period. And if we choose your idea, we're going to choose 100 ideas. We will give you $100,000 to help you make this a reality. And so we submitted an application for a giant flower pot, thinking it would just be a weird idea that nobody would choose. And we kept making it through the different levels. And so that's kind of where we got some of the funding too, was directly from Airbnb.
This is, Crystal, you've talked about before, you've talked about public assistance and getting assistance from the city where you want to be, and maybe historical district, or maybe, an area of town that they want to help with. But even looking at places like Airbnb was something I would have never thought of.
Yeah.
Whitney, let's start at where this is in your journey, or let's go to where this is in your real estate journey. Was the glamping dome your first piece of real estate?
It was my first Airbnb. I had a house that I bought when I was just a baby and had that rented out for a little while. And so that one was a long-term rental. And so I dabbled in that for quite some time and had a property management company running all of this stuff. I wouldn't necessarily do that today, but that's what I did when I was in my 20s. And then the Airbnb, it kind of blended this desire that I had where I loved DIY and building stuff and just having fun and making money, like truly. I enjoy both of those things quite tremendously. And so I was trying to figure out a way to combine those things. And I knew real estate was something that I wanted to do longer term. But the only way I could really get into properties that would combine that was either a fix and flip or a unique glamping dome. And so for me, the glamping dome was more affordable than a fix and flip.
Gotcha. Well, let's go back to what you wouldn't do, because that really interests me. So you're in your 20s, and how did you buy that first property?
Yes.
As a
So
baby.
as a baby, I was a nail technician throughout college, so I had a pretty okay salary. And so I was saving up some cash, and this was October 2008, so I was 19. Market
Mhm.
crashed, and it wasn't the lowest, but it was pretty dang low. And so I was in a good position to be able to get a first-time home buyer loan with the 3 to 5% down. I think it was 3, and bought that house. And so then I was house hacking and renting my rooms to my friends and just getting my mortgage paid a little bit cheaper so it was more affordable. But that was the first property. And then I moved in with my boyfriend. We did that for a whole little while, rented out my house, and then hired the property management company to do that.
Now, why wouldn't you? You made the comment, you're like, I wouldn't do that this way. Now, what is it that you wouldn't do? Would you not hire the property management company? Would you not house hack? Would you not move out and rent it out? Which piece of it wouldn't you do? Like, what would you do over?
Yeah, what I would do over is I would not hire the property management company. I'm sure there are some fantastic ones out there. What I found is nobody cares about your property as much as you do. And so when my first tenants had moved out after a year-long lease, my grass in my backyard was completely dead. Like I had to start completely over and it was very expensive. And then there was just a lot of things. There were some holes in my carpet that were burned in. Just, the usual.
Yes.
So I feel like if I were managing that, I think I would have actually cared a little bit more and followed up with the tenants and did a better job screening instead of just trying to get somebody in the door.
Those are good lessons.
The geodome is interesting because obviously, well, maybe not obviously, you must have been then thinking this is an Airbnb project right from the get-go. Like this is going to be a short-term rental thing.
Yes, 100%. One of my really good friends is the queen of building weird houses, like very quirky Airbnbs, potatoes, hobbit holes, tree houses, lookout towers, like you name it, very strange ones. And so over the years, I've started to chat with her and she's shared with me numbers and what everything looks like. And when everyone's Airbnb bust, she was still staying profitable. And I thought that was kind of interesting. So that was something where the riches are in the niches, and I started
Mhm.
to pick up on that when I would look at the data, and so I knew that that was an area I wanted to go into, was the unique stuff.
But you said these unique properties are more expensive. So
They
is
are.
it profitable because she gets a premium because so many people want to stay in a quirky ass place?
It's kind of twofold. So when you can't get financing for these, you have to be creative, so you actually end up doing a lot more hands-on work with this stuff. And so most of the properties are very inexpensive for her because she's doing all of the work. Now, to be fair, that's her job. She loves it. It's fun for her. And so if you were trying to scale this up, that model probably wouldn't work very well. But when you don't have a lot of overhead and you're doing all the work, you save a ton of money. So you can actually cash flow this a lot better. So I think that's an element of why it's so profitable in addition to the demand.
Yeah, the demand is high.
Very high. There's a lot of weirdos that like to stay in weird properties,
Yeah.
Longevity,
myself
and
included.
that's a factor too. If there's like a hidden speakeasy, people want to go and find it no matter, if it's $30 per drink, they'll be like, okay, I had a drink at the speakeasy.
Yes, there is an element of that. I think it's fascinating too. If you just look at the way people are starting to travel, you have two types of people. You have people that just give me a hotel, let me just check in, I know what I'm getting, I just want it to be easy. And then you have other people that are more experienced travelers. And those are people that are renting the weird, quirky houses. They're staying in the castle when they go to Ireland. They're the ones that are seeking out these types of experiences. And so it's just a different market. Neither one is right or wrong. It's just different.
Well, and I want to get into that a little bit because obviously your Airbnb listing sticks out, right? Which is
Mhm.
cool. I mean, I've flipped through Airbnb before looking at places to stay, and clearly your photos are going to pop when compared with a normal, bungalow, right?
Yes.
Right, right next to it, or some ranch style house. You got this geodome that we can stay in. But now you're competing with, when you go into that market, as you know, now you're competing with Marriott, you're competing with IHG, like you're half Whitney in the hospitality business. How is this different than when you were doing house hacking and own more of a long-term rental?
Drastically different. I'm so glad you mentioned the hospitality business because I think there is a lot of money to be made in short term rentals and even midterm. But what people often forget is you are in the hospitality business at that point. It's not just sit back and collect a paycheck. You're doing customer service. You're trying to anticipate guest needs. You're constantly troubleshooting. It's a lot more involved than I think people give it credit for. And so I'm glad you mentioned that. It is very, very different. You have to be always on. My phone's always pinging. If there's a message, I have to reply within a few hours. And so it is a different business model. It's not for everybody, but I do think it's kind of fun. If you like making people's day, I think it's a good business.
Well, but I know we talked to Lauren from Adulting is Easy, who also does short-term rentals, and she set up some really good systems. Tell us about your systems that you use. There's got to be some software that you use that helps you make this easier.
Yeah. So Airbnb actually has a lot of automations built in where you can send out messages to your guests immediately when they book, however many days in advance. And so you can kind of customize that. But what I personally do is I send a message that's seasonal. So being a mountain property, the preparation that you need for the summer is very different than the winter. And so
Oh,
those
sure.
messages change because of that. And so what I do is when they immediately book, they get a seasonal, hey, thanks so much for booking. Here's all the things you need to know. And I will send you an email 7 days before you check in with all of your information and a welcome guide. And so, what I do with those emails, part of my system when I'm setting up a new property is thinking, what are the sticking points that they're going to reach out to me and be bugging me on a Friday night at 11 p.m.? Like, what are those things where if they reach out about Wi Fi or how do I work the solar system? That's the stuff that you can anticipate what the problems might be. And so I will include that in that message a couple of times, which sounds kind of annoying and redundant, but you're trying to give them not all of the information, just the pertinent, important information. And so that's what I include in those messages too.
I love this. Crystal, one of my favorite reads, and other people's results may vary, but it's Sun Tzu's The Art of War. And it's all these great business lessons from ancient Chinese philosophy. And one of my favorite maxims, Whitney, from that is the best battle's the one you never fight. And by pre-thinking about what the objections might be, what the problems might be, and taking those off the table ahead of time and pre-planning, it's got to make your life a hell of a lot easier.
Oh, it really does too. When you know that you're going to get 9 people asking about, do I need to bring firewood? Include that. Like make their life a little bit easier, make them feel more confident and prepared going into your property. Again, it's not a hotel. So there's that barrier of, I don't really know what to expect. Every Airbnb is a little bit different. So if you can ease their mind by having them feel prepared before they even get there, it's just helping you and them.
I also like how you said, you say it a few times within in each message, because that's one thing I tell people. I was like, when you be ready, when you become a business owner, to say the same thing 2,000 times and have the same energy when you say it the first time to the fifth time, because you don't want to be off putting. You don't want to sound condescending, but you do want them to know, yeah, this is the information you need. Here it is again. Here it is again.
Yeah, Crystal, the number of times I felt like a complete dumbass because I'll ask somebody, where is that? They're like, it's on page 2 of that document I gave you. Like, I'm like, oh, sorry. I was supposed to look at the document.
Did you just add that?
I know, right? You must have just added it because I wouldn't be dumb enough to not read the stuff. Yeah.
No.
But I do agree. Say it over and over and over and over and over is great advice. I want to ask you a little bit about Airbnb as a system, Whitney, because we've done some, there's been some reporting that around the country, the Airbnbs are getting smaller rents and
Yep.
the market's kind of saturated. Do you think that having these unique structures is kind of a buffer against some of the deterioration we've seen in Airbnb pricing?
I do. And the only reason why is because when you're trying to compare properties, if I'm going to the mountains with my girlfriends for a weekend getaway and we want to rent a cabin, we're just shopping cabin for cabin. We might filter by, does this have a hot tub or a sauna, something like that. But generally speaking, they're all the same to me. I'll look and find, this is a cool cabin. I like it. Is it cheap enough for me to afford? I'll book it. But when you are the only, like, there's a house in Idaho that's actually truly shaped like a dog, like it's a giant beagle. It's crazy. And this house is constantly booked, which kind of makes sense. Where else are you going to stay in a giant dog, right?
Right.
So the demand is there. But I do think if you do have a property, one of the ways to differentiate within Airbnbs themselves is by your added amenities. I have a couple friends that have a very cute, beautiful cabin. It's still a cabin, but what they did is they added a bus in the backyard and converted it into extra sleeping quarters. And people will book that cabin specifically because they like the bus. And so I'm like, what a genius way to go. So I think anything you can do to make your property truly unique will help you.
We stayed at a property in Minneapolis this summer on our way up to Voyager National Park. I had my niece with me. And the main reason we booked it was because they had video game cabinets in the living room. And they called it like the video game heaven. And I thought, oh, my niece will love this place. What was really cool about it, Whitney, was it was a nondescript condo on kind of a crappy street. The bathroom was tiny and was on the second floor. I missed all of that stuff that made the place crappy because they had 2 video game cabinets in the living room and painted some theming on it. It was brilliant making that. I mean, it truly was the reason why I booked. So I'm 100% on board with that.
And I have to say too, there is this gal that I follow on Instagram. I think her profile is called It's Bridget Bitch. And her stuff is so fun. She will take very generic wall, like nothing fancy houses and convert these into these like really incredible, colorful places where they became really popular at bachelorette parties.
Oh,
And so
Bachelor
they're starting
party.
to do all of
Hey,
these
there's
amazing
butterflies all over this, guys.
Sign me up, guys. That's so funny. But that's the niche, It's all bachelorette parties, very colorful, bright, and it kind of goes to your point, Joe, where people will fixate on something. Like if you're into
Yeah.
Star Wars and you see a Star Wars themed place, you're probably going to want to book it.
Crystal, just a little bit of imagination with your place. This person in Minneapolis they didn't build a flower pot like Whitney has, but they used a little imagination to turn this kind of crappy condo into a destination place for me and my family.
yeah. That little thing. Yeah. So that's a good idea, thinking out just slightly outside the box.
The last thing I had about Airbnb on my end, and then Crystal, you may have other questions, but Airbnb getting some pushback lately from a lot of people, like the joke out there that I can stay at Marriott and leave the bed however I want to, but I stay at an Airbnb and I've got mom's laundry list at the end of the stay where, hey, you want me to take out the garbage and sweep the floors and, maybe paint the spare bedroom. I'm joking, but you know what I'm talking about. Like, are you seeing that start to change at Airbnb?
I have been seeing this change quite a bit with an Airbnb. You're seeing a lot more hosts that are in it for the right reason, meaning that they understand it's a hospitality business. And that turns out you do have to try to get people to be happy and have a good time when they stay at your property if you want to make money. Go figure. And so they're starting to have shorter checkout lists. And it's things where it's a lot more standard. Like you shouldn't have to do your laundry when you check out. You shouldn't have to necessarily strip out your bed. And so they're starting to become better. But what I'm noticing is that you're seeing a lot of these properties filter themselves out because the reviews are reflective of that. So if it's a huge laundry
Ah,
list, they're
yeah.
not going to get great reviews. And so if you get below a certain review, I think it's 4.3, Airbnb can actually kick you off the platform as a whole. And so you can completely have your account removed. I don't know how often that happens, but that is something that I'm starting to see is people are reviewing a lot more harshly based on that checkout stuff.
You got to be doing some things though, I would guess, too, a little bit, try to spike your reviews. What do you do to try to make sure you
This
get
is
good
the
reviews?
smallest tip, but it makes all of the difference. It's when your guest checks out. So make sure you have your cleaner go in there and make sure the property's okay, everything's inspected, everything's in order. And then reach out to the guest and just say, hey, thank you so much for treating this property nicely. We really appreciate it. If you enjoyed your stay, we would really appreciate if you left us a review. It helps us a lot in Airbnb's algorithm, and it really does make a difference for our property. If you have any specific things that you think would be helpful for people to have a better stay in the future, please leave us a message in that private message field. And that, Joe, that works. Every single time you leave them a
Wow.
review, you send that email, it will get you good reviews. It really will.
That's fabulous. That's a great tip because I know those reviews are the lifeblood of, well, not only do you not want to get kicked out, man, I
Yeah.
scour the reviews and I'm always
Yeah.
looking to see A, how many are there? And then B, like everybody, I'm always
Yep.
looking for the crappy one. So reviews super important there. What else you got, Crystal? Something else for Whitney?
Well, yeah. Well, I know how hard it is to get people to leave reviews. And it's usually the extremes, when somebody's really pissed off or somebody's really happy. That's what usually moves people to write reviews. Speaking of reviews, Dieters, we would love to have you submit
Oh,
some,
look at you. Nice
quite
work.
why would we want your reviews? But so, Whitney, let's talk about the money, the expenses. Like, so how are you handling expenses? You said the $100,000 helped. So, did it put a big dent in helping, or it was just like, yeah, thanks, but cool.
Yes. It was $100,000 minus taxes.
Okay.
So what I was actually able to spend was I think about
Mhm.
78,000. And so the way the money was divvied up is it was three different payments. So one in 2022, two in 2023. And so putting aside the tax money in a high yield savings account so that come tax time I'm not stressing out is always good. But the entire cost, so this flower pot project is in Burley, Idaho, which is where I grew up. It's a
Mhm.
really small farming town, southern Idaho. And my mom has had property down here for years. Like it was
Mhm.
her dad's. Her dad was a farmer. She wanted to create a flower farm and was talking about how cool that would be. And so when she mentioned that, that's kind of the inspiration behind why we submitted this idea was a flower
Mhm.
pot naturally goes with the flower farm.
Mhm.
And so she already had the land, so that was helpful. We didn't have to go purchase a piece of property, but it was undeveloped. So we did have to develop everything, septic, well,
Oh
utilities, all of
my.
that kind of stuff. That was about $30,000 in total there. And then in addition to that, the $78,000 from the Airbnb was essentially enough to finish all of the exterior, the stucco, the framing, the roof. So that's what all of that money essentially went to. And I did hire contractors for all of that stuff. And then the interior, what we had to do to finance it was we had to take out a loan on land equity. So because the land is free and clear, we were able to do a commercial loan on the land itself. But the bank would not touch the flower pot. They didn't want a flower pot. They said if they were to repossess this, they would have to tear it down because how the hell are you going to
Yeah,
market a
right.
flower pot? And so that's the downside to these types of properties is they don't necessarily have a huge resale value in a traditional real estate sense. So we were able to take out a land equity loan for about $48,000 on the land.
Why is the bank so out of touch, like, with reality?
With
Like,
flower pots. Everybody,
What the heck? Everybody wants a flower pot. Come on.
I know. Duh. Who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
It would be interesting, though. I would think that assuming it's decently maintained, that another Airbnb, another rental company would want to buy
Yeah.
that. I do think that you do have a market to sell it if you ever decide to do that.
It's very true. And I think from the bank's perspective, it's how quickly can I sell this? And they want to see, like, can I get out of this within a couple of months?
But
Maybe.
no, I totally get the bank's point of view. I totally
Yeah,
get it.
I do too. It would go for a lot though.
Yeah. I think for you, though, knowing that niche better, like than the bank does, you've got some expertise there. You can find a seller if you decide that you're out.
Yes. There's a lot of investors that are interested in the weird properties.
that's what I was saying. Yeah, I think that's why commercial and hard money loan and, like, what else? Those the investment clubs, I think those are better kinda places to they understand, like, with the financing. Because hey, me and my friends, instead of a bachelorette party, we can go all in on a flower pot, or the next best bachelorette pad kinda place.
If people want to look and see the flower pot and the construction, I'm thinking sending them to your Instagram account's probably the best.
I would say so. The Instagram account, I've been trying my hardest to document all of the different process so they can see what does the drywall look like? What does the framing look like? How did they even do a window? Even that's like really challenging in a flower pot. Every little thing is just so much more complicated there. But Instagram's probably the best place. That's at Idaho Flower Pot. And that way they can see all the weirdness behind the scenes.
And of course, we'll also link to the Money Nerds. You got to tell us what's coming up soon on the show, Whitney.
Yeah. So the next thing on the show that I'm really excited about is Jamila Souffrant.
Ah,
She just launched a fantastic book, and that's gonna be coming out soon. So I'm honestly really looking forward to sharing her episode. I think she's such an inspirational person, and so I'm really pumped to get that one out into the world.
excellent. We'll link to Money Nerds. And by the way, just pause the show right now and go put it on your list. Go subscribe wherever you're listening to us today. Whitney, thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you so much, you guys. It was really fun to chat about unique properties, and I hope that if somebody's kind of interested in this market, they see what they need to do to get into this and save a lot of cash because it is very cash intensive, but it's worth it.
Well, I'm loving watching the pictures even from the glamping dome to now the flower pot. So I can't wait to see what's next too.
Right.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We'll find out. I think it depends on how much money I have. That'll determine the next project.
Oh my goodness. We have a Deeder probably, Crystal, calling us right now. Whitney, you want to hang out and answer this with us?
Sure.
Let's see what Deeder is on the line with a question for the show.
Hey, thank you for doing this show. My name is Stacia, and I'm coming over from Stacking Benjamins, and I'm totally jazzed about buying real estate. But can we please discuss what happens next? Where can I find laws about what can and cannot be put into lease contracts and other laws that govern renting and landlording? I really want to be an equitable landlord. Thank you so much for your help. I really appreciate it.
And that's a fantastic request, Dasha. And we should, Crystal, get an expert in that area because I think that's super important. But that's also going to be hyper local.
Yes. And thanks for your question, Stasha. See, the listeners are listening to us and they're calling in now instead of just writing. But I know back in the day in Chicago, when I first became a landlord, they actually have a landlording class. So you go through a landlording class and you learn. It was back in 2005. I don't remember what I learned, but I know I learned a lot of.
What I learned.
I learned all the ins and outs, do's and don'ts, like what I can and can't do. Like you have to give like the lead-based paint disclosure, all the different disclosures that you have to, like the building code process, making sure that you can pass the building codes and you're not in violation because you can't rent if your building is in violation of any codes. And then there's also an Illinois Tenant Association. So I actually had to use them as both a landlord and a renter. And they also will hold your hand through different processes and issues that come up. And I believe it was all free. Like they worked pro bono at the time. So a lot of states definitely, like Joe said, check locally, but a lot of states have local, like the tenant associations and things like that. But definitely a lawyer for any leases too. Like any contract lawyer, like that should be your first, second, middle, last name is lawyer, lawyer, lawyer when it comes to like any lease or contract.
Yeah, what's that like in Southern Idaho?
Southern Idaho is kind of a free for all. It's the Wild West over here. What I would suggest if I were in your shoes is I would go network with other investors in your area, go to a couple meetup groups, get to know some people. That's going to help you understand what people are including in their lease and then also who their attorneys are. And then from there, if they tell you I put this in my lease, I would fact check every single thing in there so that you don't get yourself in trouble. But that network, I think, will help you in at least understanding what people are including as normal.
Yeah, in Texarkana, it's also much more of a free for all as well, but in different ways. And what's interesting too is what's in contracts, and I won't get specific here, but what you have to have in a contract on the Arkansas side, because Texarkana is a border town. Any tenants you have in Arkansas will expect a different contract than people that are renting from you in Texas. And so if you have two properties, even though they're in the same quote city, if they're in Texarkana, Arkansas, it's going to be a different contract than in Texarkana, Texas. So very, very much hyper local. I think that's great advice to check your local. I love the idea of going to meetups. I know when my son was starting to build out his real estate empire in Detroit, he went to real estate investor meetups and he met attorneys, he met other investors, he met mortgage people, he met construction people. And you can ask that very local question to a group of people that knows what's going on. But I would love, maybe what I'll do, Crystal, is reach out to somebody here in the city, or maybe somebody from the tenant association.
Mhm.
And Stacia, to your point, we can get one of these people on to show you just in a generic community what that might look like, with emphasis being on where you live is going to look different than what this person's actually talking about.
That is true. And then that's true too. Like the first thing you do ask is because even in Virginia, when I first started renting, I went to my realtor and then I went to another friend. I'm like, hey, do you have a lease that I can borrow? Like, let me see the lease that you use. Like, so you'd usually your first path of least resistance is to ask a friend that you know that's investing or that realtor that sold you the place. Like, hey, what's the standard lease? Let me at least start there.
Yeah. Great question. Look locally, but we'll bring somebody on to talk about that because we haven't covered that topic yet.
Sure.
Thanks for the question, Stacia. If you've got a question for the show, Crystal, where do people reach out to us?
You head to stackingdeeds.net/voicemail. And then you can leave a voicemail where we can hear your lovely voice because you're tired of hearing just ours. Or you can type
Stacia's
it.
voice is way better than ours.
Yeah. And then, yeah,
Does have
she's
a good voice.
stacking Benjamin's transplant also. We like that. So, yeah. So go there. We can answer your question just like we did, Stacia.
I think that's going to do it for today. Let's give people again, Crystal, the show notes.
Yeah, that's a wrap. So you head to stackingdeeds.net/show notes. So you'll get a recap of the show and a link to all the fun stuff that we talked about today. Because you want the visual as well as the audio. We tried to give you sexy audio descriptions of the flower plant, but we want you to see it with your eyes.
Whitney had no idea she's creating real estate porn for all of our Deeders.
I did it. I'm here for it.
At sexyflowerpot.com. Did you buy that domain?
Not yet. I'm going to go buy it right now.
Right.
Add it to my renewals.
Right.
Well, Whitney, thanks for hanging out with us for the show. We really appreciate you riding along and helping our Deeders.
Yes,
Thank you so much. I'm really grateful for your time.
All right.
Yeah.
She's Whitney. She's Crystal. I'm Joe. We'll see you next time. Doug, you got it from here, man. What should we have learned today?
So, what should we have learned today? First, take some advice from Whitney Hansen. Let your imagination run wild on ideas to get your property to stand out. you never know. Your next idea just might go viral and become a huge hit. Second, it's okay to use debt to purchase income-producing assets. Just don't do it for lifestyle inflation. But the big lesson? You don't want to install a luxury bathroom in the trunk of a Lincoln. I know this thing's as big as a boat, but, not as waterproof. Thanks to Whitney Hansen for joining us today. You can find out more about her work at themoneynerds.com. We'll also include links in our show notes at stackingdeeds.net.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.